And our intention with the recording is to cultivate a video library that's of service to people. And the intention of the Sangha is, just to let you know kind of why we're recording. The intention of the Sangha is to cultivate positive conversations and cultivate positive information that uplifts our community and gives them insight into more self-care and things, things that are going to be able to uplift us. Cool. So
thank you all so much for joining. I'm Salim, director of Synergy Yoga, along with Francisco. And we always start our sanghas with just a grounding. So I invite you to find a comfortable seat and just bring some length into the spine. And we're just going to take 2 deep breaths. You can either, if you have the genetic makeup to make the tunnel with your tongue, you can do that. If you can't do it, then you can make your lips like you're sucking through a straw. Okay? So let's take a deep inhalation through the tongue. Curl the tongue back to the top of the roof of the mouth and then softly exhale through the nostrils. Okay, now allow the eyes to close and continue on with this breath, inhaling through your tunnel or your lips. Curl the tongue back to the roof of the mouth, softly exhale through the nostrils. 2 more breaths, inhale. Exhale. Allowing the facial muscles to soften. Inhale, relaxed abdomen. Exhale. And we'll take the palms just at heart center and let's rub the palms together a bit. And place your right hand at the abdomen, left hand at the heart, just bringing some warmth into the body. Allow the shoulders to soften again. Relax the arms down, gently open the eyes. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on to my brother Francisco to present our presenter today.
cool. Good morning, everyone. See Lorna just joined in. Beautiful. She just came out of the movement practice with Janelle. Yvette, I'm actually texting Flip right now to see if he wants to jump in. Flip is one of our mentors. So really grateful to be hosting Yvette today. I met her, what was it, 99? Yeah, 99 in the Bay Area at a conservation, it was called a Mosaic in Motion festival, like gathering that we put together in the Bay Area. And the intention was to bring all people together and break barriers of race and diversity in national parks. That was the intention of the event. And she stayed the course, and she's just been continued to persevere on her path as a horticulturist. And today she's the assistant horticulturist at the Met Cloisters at the, I'm starting to read the bio, Yvette. But hold on one sec. Yeah, so it's she's a Reiki practitioner, mindfulness and meditation teacher. She's also a mother to her very wonderful, very loving, very funny son, who's Rivers, who's 17 years old. And today she's also working on propagation and seed collecting. And let's see what else we got in this bio. Well, you can share a little bit more, Yvette, with us about what you're excited about. But how long have you been at the Met? I'm just curious about that.
I've been there 7 years now. So.
Okay. And before that, where were you?
Before that, I've worked what have I worked? The Heather Garden, which is in northern Manhattan, and it's the largest open public garden in New York City. And then before that, at the High Line, and I did an internship at Wave Hill Gardens. So it's all, oh, and yeah, High Line, yeah. So all public gardens, because it's, I feel, really important to create spaces that all people can access. And that has really been, I think, my calling in this field is working in those spaces and being able to create space for everyone to be able to access, especially in New York City, where we need to be able to be in green spaces and have that. I think it's really important for healing and for just for our souls to be in that space.
Yeah, and for the past, like, I mean, for however many years, pretty much like all your work has been in New York and Jersey, right?
Yeah, so before that, I worked in the floral industry, which is a little bit, is kind of, even though it's working with plants and flowers, was not quite the direction that I wanted to go in because it's not fully accessible to everyone and very competitive and just a little bit of a weird scene. But and before that, working with the Student Conservation Association, being able to work with young people in public park and in national parks and state parks, doing trail work, working with youth, just really trying to get them out into nature and also making that connection for them, building trails.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to watch. Yvette's a long-time friend. I mean, this is someone I really care about a lot, and it's really beautiful to have watched her kind of persevere and stay the course in the same green path, you know, and with the intention to cultivate more space for people in the city to have that oasis within the city. In that, which the place where she works at now is very much an oasis within the city. I think it's often been described as that. Whenever I talk to friends of mine that grew up in New York, they're always like, "Oh, the Cloisters." I would always take my dates there. You know, like they would, you know, just the green space was always the spot, the Cloisters. And she's still doing it today, and it's really beautiful to watch someone who just persevered and stayed with it. When I met her, I was in that field myself, and it kind of like took a little branch into more like the wellness and, you know, similar but different. You know, I think they both really inspire wellness within us. So cool. I just sent Flip the link. He's texting me back. Sorry, I've been like trying to text one of our mentors at the same time I'm talking, and I'm not a wonderful multitasker. But cool. I hope he joins in. Flip was the director of the Student Conservation Association, and we first met like 20 years ago, and he had I think we did a couple of programs together. Sweet. So today Yvette's going to be giving us a little bit of insight, welcoming plants into your home. What are you going to be sharing about today, Yvette?
Well, I think what I would like to do first is maybe just for everybody to introduce themselves, since we're a small group, and to maybe just share why they're here, and then also just to hear if everyone could just share a little bit of what plants, what nature means to them, and just so that we can all kind of have a quick. I can hear where everybody's coming from too. Liz, and when you're done, can you call on somebody else to speak?
Thank you. I'm related to Salim. I'm his mother, and kind of maybe a mother to Francisco. I live in Northern California. Spring has been essential in my life since a child, and knowing nothing about you, Yvette, seeing you surrounded by greenery, and then hearing your introduction, I said, of course. here I am with African violets. Their beauty is constant. And I haven't used lots of plants in my apartment, which I call my nest, because I have light in every direction. And so right now I'm looking at magnolia trees, which will be blooming soon, and the blooms become the size of a cantaloupe. And I have been fortunate to be able to get out each and every day. And one of the areas is an art and garden center where I sketch, and forget-me-nots are out now, orange poppies that are indigenous to Northern California. So nature, in or outside, has given my life meaning and beauty. And I will call on Maura, and thank you all.
Thanks, Liz. Hey guys, I'm Maura. I'm a longtime friend of Yvette's, so really excited to be here. I wrote down 3 words, like what does nature mean to me? Connection back to Mother Earth. I think relationships too. I think my plants are really happy that I've been home all year. They seem to be doing really well. So I do think there's a relationship back with plants. And then meditation, like just deadheading, is something that I find a lot of introspection in, because it's kind of like a task that I don't really want to do, but once I'm into it, I find some good headspace. And Yvette, just to answer your question, I did come with my list of things that I wanted to talk about. And a lot of it's propagation, because like I said, my houseplants are doing really well, but I need to trim them down, but I'd like to then propagate them and give them new homes in different pots. That's it for me, and I will call on Jolene.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jolene, and I too am a longtime friend of Yvette's. And I also have a river, and they're best friends. They've been best friends since they were 4. So look out, New York City. I live in Brooklyn, and nature is everything to me, always has been. I'm an educator. I've worked in environmental science for a long time. Right now, I'm in early childhood. And right now I'm on the steering committee of one of the community gardens here in Brooklyn. I'm here specifically to hang out with Yvette for a little while, and to, my houseplants need some help. So I thought I would come and see what she has to say. And I will pass to Carrie.
Hi, sorry. I'm Carrie, and I love plants. They're really a part of my career. I have a PhD in natural products chemistry, so that's really been isolating and identifying compounds that have health benefits. So I've been working with moringa for about 20 years. So it's just starting to sprout. And so it's been nice to be able to talk about it and have it over with people where we can eat it too. And it's definitely healing. It's just, for me, it's like getting off the computer into the backyard and into the sanctuary has been a challenge and a balance but I've been blessed to be able to, get funding to work with plants. So yeah, thank you. It's cool to be with plant lovers. Oh, and let me see. Lev, you're in your greenhouse. You look like you're ready for show and tell. So.
Well, Carrie, I wanted to show you. Remember, you gave me these. Some moringa seeds from Carrie when I stayed with her. She gifted me these. Peace, everybody. I'm Lev. This is Pele. And we're actually just getting our first starts, our first little starter trays going. But this isn't our greenhouse. We're guests here at the sanctuary, where Francisco is. We'll be staying here for the next month and kind of coming back and, you know, giving some energy to the communal space here. And yeah, but I'll keep it short. We're gonna get some cucumbers in some pots today, and, you know, just really interested. I've never been an indoor plant person. I've always just kind of had gardens outdoors and done a lot of urban farming. But I'm interested to learn more. So that's why I'm here. Now, who hasn't gone yet?
Pele.
Pele, you want to say something?
Hey, Pele.
I'll pass it to Dante.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dante. I'm logging in from the Washington, D.C. area, northeast in the city to be exact. I'm starting to appreciate nature just over the course of being introduced to with this community. Naturally, even though DC has natural trails, it hasn't been promoted as much into like it's not something that was promoted in our communities of color. So getting an opportunity to see more nature over the course, spending time at the sanctuary, seeing more of nature, starting to cultivate more plant life in my home for a space of well-being and beauty. I have a daughter that is legally blind and she has muscular dystrophy. So being a caretaker, pretty much majority of my days, you'll see me kind of in and out. Right now, she's being on her piano and her keyboard. So I have some time and space. But so excuse me if my camera's off because I'm still like fathering and doing some other things. But getting an opportunity to start bringing more plant life into my home has been peaceful. It's a reminder, which also we've been able to, my family, my young cousin and I, we inherited a family farm of 10 acres in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So getting an opportunity to start cultivating, we just got approved yesterday for the 2021 Young Farmers Grant. And we also are not too far, we're on the west side of Tuscaloosa. So we are looking to cultivate the farm into working with more in the community on the west side of Tuscaloosa, especially being from Washington, D.C. So just learning the whole nature of it. And I really appreciate it. So I'm really excited because I do have some questions about growing plants. I'm like, feel bad when they start turning brown on me. I'll be like, wait, what am I doing wrong? So it's pretty cool to be a part of it and to have your expertise, Yvette. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, pass it on, Dante.
You want to pass it on, bro?
Yeah. So I'm going to pass it on to Malika.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malika. I also live in Washington, D.C. Hi, Dante.
Hello, Malika.
Hi. You know, I don't have any plants in my apartment right now, which is probably that needs to be rectified. But one of the great things about the pandemic is that because I've been so stuck inside, I have really grown to appreciate our local park here in DC, which is called Rock Creek Park. I drive through the park all the time because it's a big driving area. But I've started hiking in it like almost every weekend and found all these trails that I didn't know existed. And there's so many other people who are also hiking because we're all stuck inside. And I so appreciate this park in like a whole new way. And it's, you know, there obviously the pandemic has brought so much suffering, but there are some upsides. And one upside for me is this reconnection to nature, and even not even a reconnection, but like a craving for it because I'm inside so much. And in an apartment, I don't have like a have like a balcony. So I'm craving it. And luckily I live like a 5-minute drive from Rock Creek Park, or I hop on my bike and I bike there. And I feel very grateful to have this nature like right next to me. Oh, Salim, I think you're the last one, right?
Almost, but yes, second
Anna's
last.
still there.
Oh, yep. So I'm Salim, presented myself before. Great to be here. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. And I would say, you know, that my mom who's here was like one of my, well, that's to me my first connection anyway with nature, because of course I came from mom, but beyond that was very much an outdoors woman, as Malika knows. That's my sister. So we were out all the time when I was growing up. It didn't matter if it was raining, then we put on galoshes and we'd have like out in the rain celebrations and just get wet, and just walking through. I grew up in a suburban area of New York, White Plains, and just in the forest all the time, as much as possible. Then I did like summer camp, sleepaway camps in the summer. So it was always important to me. It informed my decision to move out west from the East Coast because I wanted to be in a more natural environment for uni. And I live in Kenya now, and there's a ton of access to nature here. There are amazing parks and wildlife here. And so it's important. I live in a flat, and I've definitely been visioning my next transition to, because in Nairobi, there are a lot of green spaces and you can find houses. So I'm also craving that in a more immediate living space. So I'm starting that process of visualizing when and how that's going to happen in the next couple of years. I'm so excited for this presentation. I believe last on our list is Lorna, if she's there.
Hi. Hi, Yvette, and this is very exciting. For a lot of my life, I traveled. I always used to grow herbs, and I'm in Canada, by the way. So we get very excited at this time of year. I've got my parsley and basil and everything going. My veranda out there, as when I started Synergy last year, this time, I've just fill up the whole patio outside with vegetables. I like growing food, I like growing things you can eat. Kale's the most hardy plants here. Rosemary and lavender just come back, and my spring onions come back every year. But I'm really interested to hear whatever you have to say. I'm in the process of taking my compost and starting to get everything ready. So I'd be really interested to hear, how you prepare your soil. I guess I'm interested to hear that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I'm so excited, and to have such a variety of places and ways everyone's living. This is exciting. And I've talked about my professional relationship to plants and nature, but I grew up in the suburbs in New Jersey, outside of New York City. My mother's family is from Westchester, New York, and they had a large property in Purchase. And my grandmother was very much, she was of Hungarian descent, and really just had a very strong connection to nature, strong connection to gardening. And she was, I recently found an article about her as being an environmentalist, and her practices in her garden were not common at that time in the 50s, of how she I guess worked in the garden when people were using a lot of pesticides, and she really promoted composting and natural ways. And then on the other hand, my father's family was from Georgia, outside of Atlanta, and they all had gardens, and that connection there too. So I've spent a lot of time outdoors gardening, and my parents did not inherit that innate or just knowledge of gardening, and so their gardens to me always drove me crazy because they never made any kind of sense. And so I think one of the things that drove me to want to go into horticulture was wanting to correct their they're interesting methods of horticulture and plant use and so on. Oak stakes all over a yard kind of thing. So so I'm really excited, and I feel like there's so much to talk about. So I'm going to start. I have here a it's a snake plant, and you can kind of see that it's in a small pot, and there's lots of little babies and shoot, like things that it's really crammed into this pot. And I have with me, let's see, where are you? I like to try to go with organic. I'm just jumping into this because I feel like there's so much to talk about. Okay. I like to try to go with organic soil mixes, and there's a lot of great companies and different soils. So this is a potting mix, and then here I also have a seed starting mix, and so they're different. They have different makeups of that, and they're actually not like real. There's no dirt or like soil in them, and some people sometimes think that you can just kind of go outside and dig out soil. And I'm also going to say that everything I say, there's somebody who's doing the total opposite, and it's working for them. So I will never, and there's a lot of things that I do that some people may be like, what are you talking about? So there are no hard, fast rules in horticulture. There's, we're definitely taught the best practices, but I will always say just have fun, experiment, don't get caught up in these like particulars or like that there's one way, because some things may work for you and it may not work for someone else. And that is something I've definitely learned in this world and in doing this work. So I'm going to just start with dividing a plant, because I'm sure sometimes everybody ends up with some plant that's been sitting in a pot for like 20 years, and you're like, ooh, that little thing looks like it's crammed in there. And things start to get root bound. This isn't so bad, but a lot of times, I have another one. These are little Home Depot plants, and you can get some good, I think if anything can survive in Home Depot, they can survive in your apartment. That's kind of how you can keep them going. If you want to start getting, my son is always like, I can't believe you work with plants, because I don't water my plants very often at home. You want to, they can take a lot of work. So, find things that work for you. So here you can see this one is starting to get a little bit root bound, and that means that there's a lot of roots kind of starting to wrap around the the soil of the plant. And and you can also see what's living, and what's the ones that start to yellow out are the ones that have just they're starting to die off, and you want to keep the life and like the paler roots showing. So this would be one I would just kind of like, and breaking them up, they're pretty tough. You can do a good breakup. So with those soils that I showed you, there's a lot of peat in them. And so when you moisten them, the best thing to do is use warm water, because that helps expand the molecules, and it helps, like if you use cold water, sometimes they repel, the soil and the water kind of repel off of each other, because those molecules are so tight, and they're not going to blend as well. So I like to use, you can even use like hot water to moisten the soil. So I'm gonna, let's see. So, and if you guys have questions while I'm like going along, please feel free to hop in ask me anything. Let's see. So I'm going to take this guy and divide him. And it's super, this just broke apart. So what's kind of cool, so another thing that's kind of cool is like when you're in Home Depot and you find a pot that looks like this, you can then break this up and you've got, so you're, you know, you're paying for one plant, but you can get, I just got at least 3 pots of, like I can now, so now I, oh wait, sorry. I've got four pots going here. And so you can see the roots in here and, okay. So I've been letting some of that potting soil and warm water sit together. And I'm just gonna fill up this pot that I have here. I don't know if you guys can see. And I think sometimes people, when people pot up things, you really want to go ahead and like just push that the soil like tightly around the roots. And Dante, this is also for your daughter. I think these are the textures and just kind of really being able to touch and the different textures of plants, and like your daughter being able to get her hands into the soil, and so this is like a great thing for her to be able to do. If you want to, you know, just of sharing this experience with her.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you. What's the name of this specific plant?
So this plant is a snake plant, and I think it's definitely like a different cultivar because a lot of times, often you see them with very long, leaves. They
Like a snake. Oh yeah, it gets pretty tall. Absolutely. You sound a little far away, Yvette. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I think this one is is another cultivar, and because it's got very short curled leaves. So I'm not sure exactly which one this is. I don't work with a lot of tropicals, and a lot of plants that are sold in like for house plants tend to be tropicals because one, they don't need as much light. A lot of tropical plants can kind of go without light. And so that leads me to speak about light and when you see what so often they're divided by like full light, partial light. They can kind of go into be a little bit darker. And when something says it's a full light plant, that means it needs over 8 hours of light. So often our apartments, Liz, you may have more light than many of us do, but that means that you need between 8 to 16 hours of light a day. And so sometimes people are like, why isn't my plant surviving? And it's because it really needs a lot of light. So I tend to suggest for houseplants to go with, or if you have outdoor space and it's shady, to really go with shade plants because then it's usually between 6 to 8. So a shade plant is like 6 to 8 hours, which a lot of people think would be full sunlight, but that's a shade plant. So an important thing to kind of to know. So this plant right now is potted. The soil is to about here in this pot, giving it room. So when you water, that gives it room to fill up that water so that it can really soak in. Sometimes people like to really fill up their potted plants up high with soil, but it's nice to give it space to let that soil really run through. And I think right before I started talking about potting soils. Sometimes people will use soil from outside in their potted plants. And I recommend that you don't do that because the soil structure of soil coming from outside, one, you don't know what's in that soil, but two, the soil structure is not the same. It's really meant to be something that's deep. It's meant for trees. It's meant for perennials that are outside, so that the water can really come down through that soil. Potting soil, I mean, this is only a few inches deep. Potting soil is going to allow that water to really flow through. If you're like me and don't water your plants very often and that soil gets really, really dry, I recommend putting it into into plastic, filling this up with water and filling it and pouring water over it as well, because then the way that the water works in the soil, the water will starts to find each other. It will start to those molecules will start to pull to attract each other from the bottom and from the top. And so that's just a really good way to soak your pots in your water. Does anyone have any questions?
I did. Is there a such thing as like old soil, old potting soil? So like the 20-year-old plant has been sitting in this potting soil. I imagine a lot of the nutrients are now in the plant itself. Like, how often do you recommend repotting your plants, even if they're not outgrowing their pot?
That's a great question. So there are two things you can do. You can repot. You can repot the soil, but you can also fertilize the soil. So if that plant is doing okay in that pot, then I would recommend a fertilizer like Miracle Grow, which is, like, it works well. Sometimes, I don't think I have anything here. Sometimes plants will start to get really yellow and they have this very like chlorotic look to it. It's just like pale and weird looking, and you start to realize like something's up with that. And that usually is because there's not enough iron in the soil. So you can either buy iron fertilizer, or you can replant into, like, you can change the soil up. But that usually starts to get with probably more tropicals, and it takes a little while. Like if you're using mother's tongue, to me, is like one of the best plants, because one, it's great for cleaning the air, and then second, they are so tough. Another really tough one, I'm sure everybody's seen, and you can easily propagate this plant. This guy, I'm sure you've all seen this one. Easily, just like survives anything. So when you start getting into like more plants that are a little bit more sensitive, then changing the soil, and that might be every few years. Like that's not something you need to do very often, unless the root ball is really growing rapidly and that plant is growing really, like rapidly. I don't think it's something that you have to do super regularly. Are there any other questions?
Yes.
I have a question.
Yvette, so my family and I, we are about to move into a bus. And we're trying to figure out, we want it to be a green space, living. We have a rooftop and we have, the indoor space, and we want to find plants that are rugged and, can travel with us, and at the same time have some type of use, that, either herbal or culinary use. Does anything come to mind?
So, well, rosemary is pretty tough. Sage, a lot of sages are really tough. Sage. There.
How about lavender?
So lavender is a lot more sensitive, and I at our garden we work with lavender pretty regularly. Lavender is tough because it can handle dry soil and handle, but the roots of lavender do not like to be like jolted around and moved around and like wind or any kind of they can be really really fussy, and I have grown probably every kind of lavender. We still haven't figured out what I think Provence or Phenomenal maybe the two that are the toughest, but they really need protection. They're to me they're a little bit of a tough plant to work with. They're dandelion. That one, it's like it's kind of a great. It sounds like or calendula. Those are ones that are great. But dandelions, I mean, you can use the flowers. You can use the root. The leaves for are edible. So that and we cultivate that. Like we have it. We have like a nice patch of dandelion, and that's a tough one. So can't kill dandelion. I will think about that more, Lev, and I can get back to you on some other. Feverfew is another one that's really tough. So I think a lot of plants that kind of get that are a lot of invasives, unfortunately, or not even invasives, but introduced plants that really kind of have established themselves in North America tend to be plants that are pretty tough. So, but
Lorna also mentioned chamomile.
yep, feverfew and chamomile are like in that same family. Another really another good one. So I'm thinking, what time is it? And how? Okay. Do you guys want to kind of quickly go over? Ooh, I lost everyone. Propagation and seedlings. How are you guys feeling about? I feel like I'm trying to cram in like lots of stuff and lots of information. How are you feeling about house plants? And
There was one question I held off on it, but I did want to ask about succulents.
Okay.
Inside.
Succulents need a lot of light. Like they really need to be in when more than the full sun. Like you need to have a good hot window where you're getting. I think aloes are a little bit better. They're a little more tolerant. Hens and chicks, which are the little guys that kind of grow off of each other, they'll do okay for a little while, but if you want to keep those long term, they really do need a lot of light, and they don't need to be watered so often. And let me also talk about watering a little bit, because people often say, how many times do you water your plant? And it's really not at all about how many times. Like I'm not going to say I water my plant 3 times a week, because depending on light conditions, depending on the pots that they're in. So you may have a clay pot, and a clay pot will you're going to have more air coming in and out of that pot. So you're going to need to water. If the same plant was in a plastic pot, you're going to need to water your clay pot more often. It's really just periodically coming and checking and seeing how wet the soil is and how that's doing. And then again, it's like what that plant's ability, how so like succulents can go for a little while without being watered, but you don't want to go for too long. Palms, like a lot of palms, people think um, don't need a lot of water, but I find that more frequently I water different palms, they do better. Awesome, beautiful. That's a beautiful palm. Is that a fig?
They don't need a lot of light. It's indoor and it's been growing really well because the secondary light is really good here in our apartment. Nice. And then there's a balcony there too. It's the same ones outside on my balcony, but it's dark now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That looks beautiful. And you can fertilize that every once in a while too.
Good idea. Yeah. Is it good to, if I had, I mean, there are rocks there, but incorporating some compost on the top layer is good as well, right? Would you think? It's doing well as it is, so there's no need to like tamper with it actually.
Don't mess with it. But with you saying that with the rocks on the top, I don't do it so much at home, but at work, definitely, we have a very large potted plant collection. So one of the, especially with the palms that we've found that works really nicely, is like pea gravel or some kind of topping of the rocks, because it does help to hold the moisture.
I'll show you. Yeah.
It does help to like maintain the moisture so that it's not drying out so quickly. Yeah, pretty much like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if are there questions in the chat? Okay. So let's talk about propagation. And Francisco, how long? What's my time like? And how
so the sagas are normally like hour and a half, but I feel we just generally go according to how everyone is feeling. So
you have a question from Terry. It's good to have the engagement, because that's more practical. So Terry asks if there are advice for herbs like lavender and cilantro.
Yeah. Well, lavender and cilantro are kind of two different, and maybe Carrie, can you add if you
those are just who I've had a lot of difficulty with, like both indoors and outdoors, and have just given up on.
Don't give up on cilantro.
I mean, I just buy them. I respect the growers that have the touch with those two herbs. And my neighbor has like 7 different kinds of lavender and sage. So I go over and pick hers, but I don't know why those two have been particularly challenging.
Well, Carrie, you're not like, it makes sense.
You're not alone is what she's saying.
They're 2 plants to me that are really, really temperamental and really fussy. Cilantro, have you tried growing cilantro in situ, in place, from seed? And has it gotten kind of funky and wilted out quickly?
Yeah, and you don't want to take the one precious leaf that's there to put on your meal because it's only the one holding on. So it's never been I've never been able to grow it as a food source,
So my suggestion with cilantro is to try it chicken grit, a fine chicken grit, which is you have to kind of get at a feed store if you have any, or some kind of small gritty stone that is almost like, I don't even like this size, mixed in with the soil, because they don't like it. They don't like wet feet. Same with Lavender's roots are so sensitive, and it's really hard. For me, that's like just it's really hit or miss. Again, I would say that phenomenal. There's 1,000 different kinds of, and it may be a lavandula, but phenomenal and Provence are the two cultivars to me that are the best, that are the hardiest to work with. And they like dry soil. They don't like to be exposed to wind. They're really very sensitive. So
Cool. Thank you.
just keep playing with them is my and hopefully one day you'll get a nice
Yeah, I mean, luckily there's lots of plants, so you know, if you can keep a few, but yeah, some are definitely more challenging than others. So awesome. Thank you.
For me, having a balcony and having herbs, basil, oregano, chives seem to thrive. And right now, their beautiful purple flowers are give a different dimension. But being in an apartment, having a balcony, throughout the year, I never had to bring things in. Even in Northern California chills, everything seems to be thriving. And I do not have a green thumb, but I'm working on it. And I want to mention that Salim has forgotten that when I lived in Yonkers, we used to walk to Wave Hill. And so that is an area that yes, she mentioned it, that we honored. And for me, it's honoring here the redwoods, and often spending an afternoon of drawings and painting. So beyond indoor plants, and you look like you're in a jungle, Yvette. I say kudos to you. I'm waiting for your book. And thank you.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting.
I'm waiting also. I'm gonna talk about it every day. So I think what I'm gonna do, I have like a little tiny quick slideshow that I've used in the past, or not slideshow, but like I don't know, yeah, presentation on propagation and.
You make her host so then she can share.
And I can.
Yeah, I just did the multiple share.
Nice.
So you're good.
Share because. No, I just.
And Yvette, really quick, like if people have further questions, I shared your Instagram account. Is there any other, like, should I put your email or anything that you think would be the best way to contact you?
I think Instagram is good. You did Brown Girl in the Green as the, okay. That's a good way. And my email, I can put in the, you could, if you have my email, if you don't mind. So guys, I don't, for
I can make you host instead. I put the, have you went down to share screen, Yvette? And tried to share?
Let me try again.
Okay. No problem. Hakuna wazi wazi. Haha, okay. So you're good. You can see now your screen.
All right. Now I just have to figure out how to. Oh, here.
Are you good, Yvette?
I think so. I've got it. Yeah. Cool. Exciting.
You started it. Nice.
I just made a huge accomplishment in life here.
You feel really good about your technology
Yeah.
skills. Morai, we're going to be there, bro, next week.
Cool. All right. So this is.
That is the University of Agriculture.
You want to talk about it?
I want to hear how you felt when you went there.
So I cried. This is in Peru and it's Morai. This is a site that there's, I think to be here was just like really just this phenomenal place, and I'll in the center of these circles. So the scale of this is almost indescribable. Each step probably is about 10 feet high, and so the elevation between that center, the circle, I don't know, can you see my arrow through here?
Cursor perfectly.
And going all the way up here is like several hundred feet. So this was an area that probably where the cultivation of many different potatoes came out of. Seeds from all over South America have been found in this site. That the seed trade, so one of my passions is propagation, and so it just really fascinates me. So to see and to learn that this has really just been like an industry, a science that has been for thousands of years, has been part of our human existence, is just and then to be able to go to this site was just phenomenal. And so in the center here was probably where the propagators were all living and working, and so I desperately wanted to go down there and be like home, but I couldn't. So that was just like a really exciting place to be. So here on this photo are some materials that you would need for propagation, and you can see on the left top side there are lots of seed packets. Coast of Maine is a really nice seed starting mix. Again, there's no real soil in it. It's all different kinds of, it's like peat and what else? There's just all different types of materials for creating a soilless mix that makes the soil very light and easy for the plants to root into. Over here are my tools that I have to have with me. So labeling, especially if you're doing large amounts of propagation, even if you're not, label your plants, because it's really important to know like what you're growing and navigating that. This is my pricker outer tool, and it's really just it's like a large stake that I've just divided and make little sharp points with I whittle that out. And here, let's move on. You can, so everybody lives, and I'm assuming that all of us, because there's so many of us here, we're all in different zones that we're planting zones. And what that means is what our frost time is. And you want to, like in this area, the end of April is probably our last frost time. Some plants can kind of, like you can see, like it's the kales, the cauliflowers, a lot of the these plants can kind of take colder weather and actually thrive in that cold. Violas do well, peas. And so this is just a nice way to schedule especially if you're doing crop rotations, schedule how you want to propagate. And And this is one of my little work. And just read this cool quote. Every species in the plant kingdom must have a mechanism for preventing seed germination before her seed is scattered, meaning that there needs to be like these ideal opportunities if for the seed to be able to germinate and and to spread itself. And so there's got to be these triggers for germination, and they often have to do with moisture, temperature, and the treatment of the seeds. So some seeds need to go through a cold stratification, which means they need a couple of months of cold weather before they can start to open up. Some seeds need fire to help create the right situation for germination. So these are all different seeds that I've.
Yvette, I was just curious, what are the plants that require fire?
There's a lot of, I think that there's a lot of trees. Like I particularly think of the West Coast and a lot of the pines that need, and like lodgepole pine. There's certain pines that really need to go through some sort of fire. And I'm sure that throughout the world that there's probably there's other seeds and some grasses and different things. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Grass.
this is right. So this orange seed, which is kind of exciting to me. These are mandrake seeds, and I managed to probably get to propagate, which is really very exciting. So once the seed starts to push out and grow and become seedlings, I wanted to give an example of what, once you prick them out, what they may look like. And I'm wondering if anyone would, which seedlings would you choose? If anybody would like to just jump in and say which one they would go for, or which two they would go for. You're looking at the roots, at the leaves.
The roots.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at the smallest one, looked like really healthy to me. Like there wasn't any wilting in it. There's wilting in the one to the left, and it seems like the middle one a little bit in the left leaf. So the youngest one to me looks the most healthy.
Okay.
And the root is very long too.
Yeah.
I think I'd go big.
Right?
I'd take up the one little leaf and go big.
Yeah. You guys are on it. You would know which ones. So it's this really nice, big, juicy one, but really it's all about the root system. Even if this guy had one leaf on it, I would pick this one because the root system is pretty awesome. And same with this tiny one here. So when seeds, after the seed germinates, it puts out the first two cotyledon leaves, and so they're not the true leaves yet. They're just when you look at a seed, and there's the cotyledon leaves that push out, and so here that looks like I might have a better photo. Like these two leaves here, they're going to die off. So you don't have to worry about those two so much because it's the true leaves that you want. So I have these nice little pots. They're filled with soil. I make a cute little home and hole for them, drop them in, and then kind of tuck them in like they're going to bed and make sure that the soil is nicely packed in. When you're, especially on a large scale, when you're doing a lot of seeds, you want to be sure that the soil is all tempered in at like the same amount so that when you're watering, those pots hold the same amount of water, so that some aren't drying out faster than others. If that makes sense. So here are some like things that could go wrong. Yeah, this has gotten like a algae. They've dampened off. They've died off. You want to definitely, if you see this happening in your pots, you want to remove this as quickly as possible from your healthy seedlings because it will spread. It's like a fungus that goes through, but also this green algae that some of them may be able to handle. They can live through that. It's the dampening off that is the killer. Aphids, gross. They will come and suck the life out of your plants. So you can use like a little spray bottle with water and just squirt those off. You can also get beneficial bugs as well that will, there's a wasp that you can get that will eat those guys if you're doing this on a large scale. You may also sometimes get aphids in your home. So these are.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I get a lot of that algae when I do little starters because it's so. We really struggle for sun here. How do you recommend removing that algae on the plants?
You can scrape off. You can also vermiculite. You can sprinkle over the top. Is also kind of used as like an anti-algae, it's supposed to like help a little bit. I don't know if I've tried that. I don't know if that totally works.
Scraping it off would be the quickest, most efficient way, probably. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. This starts getting more like large scale. How do I get out of seeing or sharing my screen?
Just go back to like on the bottom.
Share screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So probably many of us are not doing this as often as we used to, but cookout containers are phenomenal for propagating. And so I've just put some of that seed starter mix into this container and adding a little water. So it's like nice and damp. Again, that whole like tamping down to be sure that it's nice and like just consistent through the container is a great thing to do. Got a bunch of seeds here. I'm gonna say let's go some kale. So kind of rule of thumb, the size of the seed is going to help to determine how deep you want to, they say like 3 times the size of the seed. I tend to just, unless they're really big seeds, I tend to just kind of sprinkle on the top and then you just do like a light covering of the seed. And, if you have a nice sunny window, you're good. But there's also these great like seed starting mats, and it keeps it at a temperature. So a lot of seeds like to just cool dry and put it out and let that container sit on top of this. When talking about what triggers a seed, a lot of seeds, the right temperature is about 65 to 75 degrees that they like to be. That helps to trigger that germination. And so I've got the seeds in my hand. I'm just going to sprinkle them over the soil. And they're so tiny that you can just like press it into that seed starter mix.
Yvette, like as far as like resources, any resources that you suggest for people, to kind of like research on their own?
So for seeds, I really recommend one trying to find like seed shares or seed exchange,
Yeah.
especially, and then trying to find smaller companies that are like ethically working with seeds.
What's your friend, the gentleman that you talked to me about a lot up there? What's his spot?
Hudson Valley Seed Company.
Hudson Valley Seed Company.
So, I'll say like for people who are in the New York, New Jersey area, that's great. But also regionally, like when you're thinking, if you're in California and you're using plants, like I think trying to source seeds in an area where you live, because those seeds are used to like that, they're coming from that environment. You don't have to be that particular either, because sometimes they're more expensive, and it may make more sense to just like, whatever company, whatever, like burpees, go for it. Like whatever works for you also. I mean, if you want to be more ethical and more just go with what intrigues you and what you're excited about. Hudson Valley Seed Company, they're doing amazing work, and they really work with
they have a nice website with a lot of resources there too.
Yeah. So this little mister, this cool thing, you only have to hold it down once, and you don't have to keep doing the squirt. So I think, anyway, it should mist. It's not working. Okay, here we go. So just misting the top of that. This is also something great for like your house plant too, giving them a little moisture is a nice thing as well. You can cover this, and then once it's just like sitting on the heat mat or sitting in the sun, it creates like a little greenhouse in it, and it will hold that moisture in. Just check it every once in a while for sure. And then you also want to be sure to take that lid off once they start germinating, so they don't get like have room to grow. And then especially once they're rooting, you want to be sure that you're giving them more water, because those roots will start to suck the water out faster. And then when you're ready to start pricking out, you can prick out those healthiest looking plants, pop them up. You do need to give them a little bit of time to transition from being in your home to being outdoors, if it's a plant that's going to go outdoors. So I would recommend like 3 hours the first day, shady space, to just let it start to like get used and harden off. It's like the hardening off process. And then you can increase. For me, I feel like it takes about 3 days. And on the third day, they start to, they're looking good, and they can kind of go out, and then you can start thinking about where you want to plant them outside if you have an outdoor space. And if it's a plant that can stay inside, then that's fine too. Sometimes things do start to get leggy if they don't get enough sun with those indoor plants. And you can do this besides, vegetables and that sort of thing. You can also propagate your own perennials. And this is just like a cheaper way of growing your own perennials at home as well, because if you go to a nursery to get a big pot of some sort of perennial, that's like $30, where you can go get a packet of seeds for $5, $3, and you can start building your garden collection of plants and perennials. And I'm trying to see if I have any I think these are all mostly veggies here, but like I have a wallflower here that and these are seeds that I collected that would show up outside in the garden. And if you do have a garden space, have fun mixing your herbs and your perennial plants and your annuals together and just weaving those all together. So, questions?
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Sorry to be so late. If this is being recorded, I'd love to get the recording.
Yeah, for sure, Jennifer. We'll send you the recording. I'll share it with Yvette as well.
Thank you so much. Hi, Yvette. Great to see you.
I had a question for you, Yvette, because you were showing how you were putting the kale inside of the smaller container, allowing them to sprout in there. And I got my lettuce seeds. You know how I feel about lettuce. And the packets told me to just plant them directly into the container that they were going to grow in. And I have not done that. I've always had the little seed starters. So can you talk a little bit about the difference between propagating something in a smaller container like you demonstrated versus putting the seeds directly into that larger pot where they ultimately will likely live?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that when you tend to have more like garden space, and if you have like that real, you can do road. I think that's okay. So this is, I guess, in some ways, this is one of those questions like there's no hard fast rule. I like to propagate in seed starters because it gives me more control when I'm planting in the garden and coming back later and like what that spacing is going to be. I can prick out more and save those. Let's say I prick out like 10 lettuce seedlings. I can keep them, they'll stay kind of small in a little pot for longer. I can go through those other, the lettuce that, like I take 3 of those lettuce, I plant them out into the garden, go through those guys, and then I can do another rotation and put those other ones in. When you do, if you're sowing in situ, if you're sowing like in place, you do need to go back and prick out, like, because some of the seedlings may be close to each other, to just give them that space. And I don't know, for me personally, I just feel like I feel like I'm like wasting those plants. So I just like to, for me personally, and how I've worked with my gardens so far, like I like to do seed starters and then move along. But it's also a time thing and a space thing. Like, do you have the time and the space to be able to, hold on to a bunch of seedlings is another question. So I think this is one of those things of like what works for you, and maybe trying both methods and just seeing what's the easiest. Carrots, a lot of root vegetables. I still, again, do it all starting from seeds, but they tend to like, so that you get like the good root of a carrot. Sowing those in place is better because it gives the opportunity for the carrot, or to sow it into like once you prick them out, to sow it into a deeper pot so that root can develop.
Fantastic. Any more questions from folks? No, feel good. Sarah, are you tuning in?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I just found out about these pots that are kind of neat. They're like cloth. So they're using these in California a lot. So I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, because then they fold up and I think you can lift them by the side. So I'm trying, California is bizarre because it's like indoor, outdoor, and a lot of what you're talking about is relevant with moringa too, where you know, it's native to the tropical region, and we're kind of pressing it into these colder zones. And so it's been interesting to, you know, I wanted to bring all of the moringa inside, and then the graduate student from Brazil was like, leave them out, just let them toughen up a little. So I had abandoned a few like in the back, and I just went back and checked on them, and they're totally sprouting, and it's like, oh, there you go. They made it. So it's cool. It's fun to play with. And I just, yeah, appreciate all your information. The hot water recommendation was really interesting as well. So I'll definitely take that tip.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. I think, and then as you collect your moringa seeds that are adjusting to the climate that you're in, you know, like the student said, like they start to toughen up and they start to become more acclimatized to your region. So it is it's cool to see. Yeah, and plants are super tough. Like I just did a post on Instagram, recently of just some really neglected pots that have just been sitting out in our cold frames for probably 2 or 3 years that I don't know if they got watered, they were lucky. And I was really ready to chuck them. And it turned out they had just these phenomenal root systems going. And, you know, it was just like one of those moments that I'm like, man, these things are just amazing. Like, look at this. And inspiring, like, be tough and like not necessarily have to show that because there was just a pinhead seedling pushing up, but the root system was just like mind blowing. So plants are amazing.
And I think like the connection with the soil and the microbiome and stuff is really fascinating. I just went and visited this guy called the Worm Whisperer. I should get the mug, but he's just raising red worms and he decomposes all these things. And I mean, he was going into detail about really gross things. But then it comes out with this beautiful soil. I mean, it's just, it's incredible. And kind of when you first started and talking about green spaces, you know, I mean, I read an article about a study where they took people and had them walk in New York City through the park or not, and they can measure serotonin levels, and it is clearly higher after being in green spaces. And some of it is hypothesized as, yeah, I mean, maybe even the color green brings happiness, the air quality, all these different things, but some of it's still unknown, you know? And that's cool. And then another article that showed that people who touch soil and because of the bacteria actually also increases serotonin levels. So like the act of gardening literally does make you happier, even from like a scientific perspective, which is cool.
Liz has a question.
Well, it's not so much a question, it's a memory that I send to each of you from Salim and me. Salim, remember Stevie Wonder's The Secret Life of Plants?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I talk to my plants. I think they enjoy my music. And it is scientific. Plants have soil and soul. So I thank you, Yvette. You
might have muted, Mom. Like,
I think she was just answering to a text. There you go.
I just want to thank you personally. And I hope that there will be more women of color, young girls of color, who will follow your direction. You're special. Thank you.
Liz, thank you so much for sharing that and saying that. It really means a lot to me. I think, you know, I think it seems like we're a group of people who do have that connection to plants and have worked with plants and have nature, and whether it's just something that we're rediscovering, or it's been something that you've had an opportunity to experience for long periods of time. I think it's such a something happens to our hearts, to our souls, and like Carrie was saying, there's that science behind it, and there's those memories that, like, I think it's generational memories that come back to us of what we're supposed to, like, something clicks and something just happens where it's like, this is what my people have been doing for, and it's all of us. It doesn't matter where we're from. That connection is there, and it's really, I think, just so special, and such hard work, and such. I don't even really have words for it, because it's gardening for me has just been such a support, and the plants have been such a support to me, and they feed me and I feed them, and it's just a very reciprocal thing that's always happening, that relationship. So and I love to talk about plants, and I think that I would love to do this again and be able to continue this conversation in different ways.
Such a beautiful presentation. And one of the things I'm taking away is this as a reminder, which it's always there, but this reverence for, the plants and nature, and like in terms of engaging with it, really honoring, right, where we come from. And so, yeah, it's an important reminder. So having that sensitivity, the fact that you're always with them, it's like you're always with the mother, always connected that way. We all are. So thank you for that so much.
Yeah, thank you, Yvette. I mean, I think that's like part of like why you also have a reverence to the culture in Peru, because they like it's upholding the mother as the earth and the goddess, and it's very evident in their deep kind of wonderment in the Morai, in the Agriculture University of Morai. And it's not really like a university, but it basically, like, back in the day, Morai was like the epicenter of reverence to the earth. Yeah, this has been really powerful, really beautiful. Thank you, Yvette.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, we're gonna just stop the recording now, but we can certainly continue on for folks who want to stay on. Welcome.
Well,